Okay. I need to know if I completely messed up here, because I genuinely did not think this was a big deal until everyone looked at me like I'd betrayed them. So here's what happened. My best friend, I'll call her Cass, is an author. Like, legit published, multiple books out, actual fanbase, launch events, the whole thing. I've known her since college. We met freshman year, bonded over being awkward and sarcastic, and we've basically been inseparable ever since. If you're close to Cass, you just accept one thing: you're probably going to end up in her books. Not in a literal, copy-paste way. But she pulls from real life. Little personality traits. Random stories. Inside jokes. She's always said writing is easier when you're inspired by people you know. So all of us, me, Riley, our college friends, we've all seen tiny bits of ourselves in her characters before. It's never been weird. Until this last book. Because this time, it wasn't just "oh, that character is kind of sarcastic like you." It was, very clearly me. Same general look. Same sense of humor. Same background. Even a couple of life events that were close enough to mine that I was like, okay, that's definitely inspired by me. And then there's the love interest. That character is very obviously inspired by our mutual friend Riley. We all met in college. We've all been in the same friend group for years. Riley and I have always been close, but completely platonic. Like aggressively platonic. We've never dated. Never hooked up. Not even a maybe in another universe conversation. Nothing. But in the book, our fictional counterparts fall in love. Like full-on romance arc slow burn. Emotional payoff. Endgame. And here's the thing, I knew this. Cass and I have this tradition where I read her third draft of every book. It's kind of our thing. I give feedback, we eat takeout, we laugh about scenes. So when she wrote this one, I read it before it was published. I knew the character was heavily based on me. I knew the love interest was basically Riley. I knew they ended up together. But I didn't say anything to Riley. Or my husband. And I need to explain that part because that's apparently where I'm the problem. Riley is not a big reader. Like at all. They support Cass, sure, but they're not pre-ordering books or staying up to read releases. So it honestly didn't cross my mind that this would ever even matter. And my husband. He knew Cass had a new book coming out. But I didn't sit him down and go, "Hey babe, just so you know, fictional me ends up with fictional Riley." Because in my brain, that sounded absurd. It's fiction. It's not me. It's a character inspired by me. The plot isn't my life. The relationship isn't real. It's literally make-believe. So the book comes out. People read it. Life moves on. I genuinely forget about the whole based on us aspect because to me, it's just Cass's story. Fast forward a few months. We're all at another friend's house. Just a normal hangout. Snacks on the table, people on the couch, casual conversation. My husband is there. Riley is there. Cass is there. And out of nowhere, Cass asks Riley, "Oh, did you ever read the new book?" And Riley kind of laughs and goes, "Yeah, I did actually." I was surprised to find out we end up together. My stomach dropped. Because my husband goes, "Wait, what do you mean, we?" And there's this split second where I'm thinking, please don't say it like that. But Cass, completely unbothered, just goes, "Oh, the main characters are based on you too." Silence. Like actual record scratch silence. My husband turns and looks at me. Riley looks at me. And I can feel the shift in the room immediately. My husband says, "Based on you too, how?" And Cass explains. Casually. Like it's not loaded at all. The personalities are inspired by them. It's not exact, obviously, but yeah. It's basically them. And then comes the question I was not prepared for. Why didn't you tell us? Not accusatory. Not yelling. But definitely, uncomfortable. Riley said it felt weird finding out like that. That it caught them off guard reading it, but they brushed it off and now realizing I knew the whole time made it stranger. My husband admitted he felt blindsided. Not jealous, exactly. Just uncomfortable knowing there's a published book out there where a version of me ends up with someone we both know. And I read it. And I didn't think to mention it. And in that moment, I felt defensive. Because I said, I don't go around sharing details about Cass's books. That's her work. And it's not actually us. Which is true. Unless you personally know Cass and know our friend group, you would never connect the dots. The names are different. The situations are different. The storyline is fictional. There's no public announcement saying, hey, these characters are real people. It felt like inside baseball. Not something that required a formal warning. But from their perspective, there's now a book floating around where me and Riley are in love. And I knew that was coming. And I didn't say anything. I genuinely didn't think I was hiding something. I just didn't think there was something to hide. If I had told my husband ahead of time, what would that even look like? Hey, just so you know, my best friend wrote a fictional universe where I date Riley. That sounds so much worse out loud. And with Riley, I didn't want to make it awkward. Bringing it up almost feels like implying there's something to address. Like it matters in real life. And it doesn't. But now I'm questioning that logic. Because maybe it's not about jealousy or suspicion. Maybe it's about consent. About giving someone a heads up that a version of them is in a romance plotline. Even if it's fictional. Even if no one else would know. I keep going back and forth. On one hand, it's art. Writers draw from real life all the time. If we start pre-clearing every personality inspiration, that feels impossible. On the other hand, this wasn't a minor trait. It was an entire relationship arc. And I was aware of it. And I stayed quiet. My husband eventually dropped it, but I can tell he still feels weird about it. Riley made a joke about living in an alternate universe, but it had that thin layer of discomfort under it. And now I'm stuck wondering if my silence made something small feel big. Was I protecting Cass's creative process? Or was I avoiding an awkward conversation at the expense of transparency? If you were my husband, would you feel blindsided? If you were Riley, would you want a heads up? Or is this one of those situations where we're all overthinking something that, at the end of the day, is just a story on a shelf? Because I honestly thought I was being normal about this. Now I'm not so sure. So, did I mess up by not saying anything? Or is it unreasonable to expect a warning for something that isn't even real? Update. So after that night, things didn't explode. There wasn't a fight. No one stormed out. It wasn't dramatic like that. But the vibe shifted. And you know when something small happens, and technically everyone moves on, but it's just sitting there under the surface. Yeah. That. On the drive home, my husband was quiet. Not angry. Just thinking. And I finally said, "Are you actually upset?" And he took a second before answering, which somehow made it worse. He said, "I'm not mad. I just wish you'd told me." That was it. No accusation. No jealousy rant. Just that. And that's when it really hit me that this wasn't about the book. It was about him feeling like I knew something that involved him even indirectly and didn't think he deserved a heads up. From my perspective, it didn't involve him. It was fiction. From his perspective, there's now a story out there where his wife ends up with someone they both know, and he found out in a living room full of people. When he said it like that, I started to see it differently. Then Riley texted me the next day. Not angry either. Just honest. They said, "I'm not weirded out about the book. I'm just weirded out that you knew and didn't say anything." And I asked, would it really have changed anything? And they said, probably not. But I wouldn't have been blindsided. That word again. Blindsided. And I keep replaying the moment in my head. Because if I'm being completely honest, a tiny part of me didn't say anything because I didn't want to deal with the potential awkwardness. Not because I thought it was wrong, but because I thought bringing it up would make it weird. Which is ironic, because now it's weird anyway. So a few days later, I called Cass. And I asked her, should I have told them? And she was surprised this was even a thing. She said, writers base characters on people all the time. It's not like I used your real names. Which is true. But I asked her something I hadn't considered before. If you had written a romance between two people in our friend group who are both in relationships, do you think they should get a heads up? And she paused. And that pause told me everything. She finally said, maybe. I didn't think about it like that. And that's when I realized something important. Just because something is normal in creative circles doesn't mean it feels neutral in personal ones. A month went by. Things settled. But there was still this faint awkwardness when the book came up. So I decided to stop pretending it wasn't there. I invited Riley and my husband to dinner. Just the three of us. And I said, okay. I need to clear the air. I told them the truth. That I didn't hide it maliciously. That I didn't think it was important. That I honestly believed saying something would make it feel more real than it was. And then I admitted the part that mattered most. I avoided the conversation because I didn't want it to be awkward. And my husband laughed, not in a mean way, but like, yeah, that tracks. Riley said, it would have been awkward for 5 minutes. This has been awkward for weeks. Ouch. But fair. We actually ended up talking about it in a way that was way healthier than I expected. My husband admitted he didn't feel threatened, he trusts me. It just poked at something subconscious. Like, why those two? Why that pairing? Even if it's fictional. And Riley said it was strange reading scenes that felt emotionally intimate between characters that clearly mirrored us. Not because it meant anything. But because it blurred a line they didn't know was being drawn. That part stuck with me. Blurred a line they didn't know was being drawn. Because that's what this really comes down to. Consent isn't just about big, dramatic situations. Sometimes it's about being looped in. Even in fiction. Especially when the fiction is close enough to real life that people recognize themselves. After that dinner, the tension honestly disappeared. My husband said, next time, just give me the weird heads up. Riley joked that if there's a sequel, they at least want veto power over their fictional haircut. And we laughed. It felt normal again. But here's the unexpected part. A few weeks later, Cass called me. She said she was starting her next book. And she asked me something she's never asked before. Are you okay with me using you as inspiration again? That question caught me off guard. Because she's never asked permission like that. And I realized this whole situation shifted something bigger than just one awkward night. It made us all more aware of the line between inspired by and based on. And I told her, yes. But maybe give people a heads up if it's that obvious. She agreed. So here's the update. No friendships ended. No marriages were damaged. But I did learn that just because something isn't technically wrong doesn't mean it's automatically considerate. And sometimes avoiding a 5-minute awkward conversation creates a 5-week uncomfortable one. I genuinely didn't think I was doing anything shady. But looking back, I can see how silence can feel like secrecy, even when it's not meant that way. And now I'm curious. If your best friend wrote a romance clearly inspired by you and someone else in your life, would you want to know before it hit the shelves? Or would you rather just find out on your own? Final update. And I mean actually final, because I didn't expect this to turn into something that would keep unfolding. So a few months after the whole awkward dinner clear the air situation, everything genuinely felt normal again. My husband stopped making jokes about my alternate universe boyfriend. Riley stopped pretending to ask me about our fictional anniversary. Cass moved on to her next project. It felt resolved. Until the book started picking up traction online. Not like viral famous overnight, but enough that people were talking about it. Reviews, book clubs, a small but very intense fandom forming around the main couple. And here's where things got uncomfortable again. Someone in Cass's comment section posted something like, "Are these characters based on real people? They feel so specific." Cass, trying to be cute and vague, replied with something like, "All writers pull from real life." Which, okay. Fair. Harmless. Except then a mutual acquaintance, not even a close friend, just someone who knew us casually from college, commented underneath. Wait, is this about OP and Riley? And that's when I felt my stomach drop for the second time in this saga. Because suddenly it wasn't just an inside joke in our friend group. It was public speculation. Now, to be clear, Cass didn't confirm anything. She didn't tag us. She didn't say yes. She actually messaged me right away saying, "I didn't think that would happen." But the comment was there. And people started replying to it. OMG, that makes sense. I need the real-life tea. Are they still together? And I just sat there staring at my phone thinking, this is exactly what I thought would never happen. I had told myself that unless someone was a creepy deep diver, no one would connect it. But I underestimated the internet. My husband saw it too. And this time, he wasn't quiet. He wasn't mad at me, he was frustrated at the situation. He said, this is what I was worried about. And I couldn't even argue. Because this was the one angle I hadn't taken seriously. Once something is published, you lose control over how people interpret it. Riley texted me almost immediately. Okay, this is weird now. And I agreed. Because before, it was private awkwardness. Now it was public curiosity. So we all got on a group call, me, my husband, Riley, and Cass. And it was the most honest conversation we've had this entire time. Cass apologized. Not defensively. Not half-heartedly. A real apology. She said she got so used to fictionalizing reality that she forgot reality has boundaries. She genuinely didn't think anyone would piece it together. And to be fair, most readers hadn't. It was just a few people who knew us. But a few people feels very different when it's online. My husband said something that really stuck with me. He said, it's not about the book. It's about being turned into a story without getting to decide if you want to be one. That hit. Because none of us had actively agreed to be characters. We'd just drifted into it over years of being close to a writer. And that's when something shifted for real. Cass made a decision on that call. She said from now on, if a character is heavily inspired by someone in a way that's recognizable, she's asking first. And not in a casual, you'll see yourself in it haha way. In a clear, are you okay with this, way. Then she did something I didn't expect. She edited her online Q&A highlight and clarified publicly. The characters are fictional and not based on any one real-life couple. She didn't throw us under the bus. She didn't confirm anything. She just redirected it. And slowly, the speculation died down. The fandom moved on to arguing about tropes and plot twists instead of real people. And that was the moment I finally exhaled. Because here's the real finale. Nothing dramatic happened. No friendship imploded. My marriage didn't crack. Riley and I didn't suddenly uncover secret feelings in a dramatic rainstorm. What did happen was subtler. We all grew up a little. I learned that avoiding awkward conversations doesn't prevent discomfort, it just delays it. My husband learned he can trust me and still voice discomfort without it being jealousy. Riley learned that it's okay to say, hey, this crosses a line for me, even if that line seems small. And Cass learned that just because something is artistically normal doesn't mean it's emotionally neutral. As for me, if this exact situation happened again, I would absolutely give the heads up. Not because I did something evil, but because transparency costs less than repair. So yeah, that's the end. No explosions. No betrayals. Just a messy, very human misunderstanding about fiction, boundaries, and communication. And honestly, if your life got turned into a love story without you knowing, would you brush it off? Or would you want a say in how your character ends up?